Ready.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conservatish episode. I don't care what fucking number it is. My name is Peter Feliciano, and I'm prolific. Wherever you're listening or watching, make sure you subscribe, share, rate, review. You can find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. You can find me on TikTok at the same username. You can find me on Twitter at Rule62Peter. And you can only find me in New York for a couple more like a week and a half, and then I'll be in Austin, Texas. So send all your love and good vibes, and the wonderful Sarah Jane, a.k.a. Ladybug, is here again with
Hi, everybody.
feathers as...
Hi, you.
Feathers as...
Yes.
What are they, earrings?
Yes.
Okay. Are you happy about
You forgot what they are?
I don't... Listen...
What are those?
I'm very
Earrings?
busy. I'm very
Bracelet
busy doing life, you know.
So you don't have time for earrings.
I don't have time for earrings. Speaking of time for earrings, where can people find you, my dear?
You can find me at thelivingblog.net.
Thelivingblog.net.
Yes, please.
Awesome. And in the Living Blog, there's also other things. There's the Ladybug conglomerate.
Well, Ladybug Productions will have our own site soon enough. We just created an amazing logo. Thank you, Vanessa Del Castillo. Did I say that correctly? Probably
sure,
not.
I don't know her.
She's an amazing designer, and she created this amazing ladybug that kind of looks like a ladybug, and we'll just dive in. Kind of looks like a vulva. Kind of looks like...
I'm demure, so this is scary to me. I'm not used to talking about vulvas.
Oh, I know.
Right.
And kind of looks like a curtain, like for a stage.
Like labia. So
Sure.
like a labia curtain.
But no, a curtain for a stage because I do the Living Blog, and then I
Right.
also do Caress, and then I also do,
Right.
all the things, Access
Right.
Consciousness. Y'all remember me from last
Y'all
time, right?
remember her, right?
We actually had a convo that got lost in the sauce.
Yeah, we were recorded maybe about a week and a half ago, and then the audio died because I was trying to find room for the video. This is what I'm saying. I spend so much time, and you sacrificed a couple hours of your afternoon.
Not a sacrifice at all.
So we get to re-record. It's going to be just as wonderful and
Take
even
two.
new and wonderful and
Even better.
And I got you truffles, so it's not even like a thing.
Truffles.
They're really, really fucking good. You're going to love them.
I'm very excited.
Chocolate is delicious.
Truth.
Speaking of chocolate is delicious, last moment of promotion, my dear. You have an event coming up.
I have an event coming up. I actually have even more events coming up at this point because, I'm very prolific.
Right, of course.
I plan lots of events.
You're on the right show.
Thank you, kindly. I enjoy being here with you, and we're sad. I'm speaking on behalf of all of New York City. Sad to see you go, but happy for what you'll create.
Me too.
And maybe you'll come back.
Probably not. But,
but
tour, maybe? On tour.
On tour,
I'm
there
happy
you
to come
go.
back on
Yes,
tour.
hell yes.
I'm going to be a lot more expensive. Continue your thing.
Yes, event coming up. The Living Blog, July 3rd. We're giving your listeners a discounted ticket rate. Use code BALD. Remember we developed that last time in our conversation?
Code BALD.
Code BALD for a lower rate on tickets.
Right.
They're on sale now at thelivingblog.net. It's an event you don't want to miss. It's in Brooklyn at an
Certainly
amazing venue. It's an awesome show where I write a diary entry in the morning, read it on a stage, vulnerable AF,
Very.
and then pair it with movement, erotic movement typically. And then other people in the audience have a chance to do the same thing. And or you can just come and watch. So
Okay.
you can come and watch an amazing, spontaneous, weird, wonderful presentation. Or you can come write, read, and move your body. And it's really beautiful to witness. I know it probably sounds super out there, but I can't even. It's like every time I'm like, how did this happen? Because it's every time it's this beautiful, artful, creative, inspirational experience.
Right.
It truly is. You can sense
I
that,
can.
right? I'm
I
being
can
real,
feel it.
right?
No, I know that.
Yeah. I'm real.
You are.
Okay, as are you.
Yeah. I don't get as high pitched when I'm real, but yeah.
Well, that's real for me.
That
for
is
a
real.
Ladybug.
Yeah, it's very authentic.
So yeah, that's one of many Ladybug productions. This Living Blog coming up on July 3rd in Brooklyn. I'm also teaching the Access Bars, which the Access Bars are many people's entryway into Access Consciousness. I'm doing that on the 1st in my Chelsea backyard. Chelsea Manhattan Backyard. I'm also going to provide a group symphony session that evening. You know, I'm always doing lots of things.
Right. You're very active.
I'm very
And
active.
it's more of a, especially the living blog. I would assume it's more of a. It's not so much of a art piece or a performance. It's more of a collaboration.
It is. It's a workshop. It's a play shop. But I swear to you, every time it is also a beautiful art piece. That's been my experience of it.
Right.
So I used to do it weekly at a tiny theater in Chelsea, and then we moved to different venues, and then of course it went online during that
Pandemic thing.
That thing.
And
now it's back in person for the first time in a long while.
Right.
At an amazing venue.
So the July 3rd one will be the first one in person for a while?
Yeah, we were, surprisingly the Zoom thing worked. I think people felt super comfortable, obviously, in their homes.
Right.
Because it is vulnerable to write and read and perform.
Right.
And again, you don't have to. But typically about 90% of people do actually participate.
Right.
Sometimes people just witness, and that's totally cool. Whatever you choose, totally up to you.
Right.
But yeah, it's like a workshop. It's a play shop. It's not a refined, practiced piece.
Right.
The container itself is refined and practiced because I've been doing it for a long time now. The specific show that evening is very spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways improvisational. Certainly the movement is not choreographed.
Has the spontaneousness of it all, has it ever made you have an experience where it was like you walk away and you're like, well, that wasn't ideal, but it is what it is, and I allow it to be what it is, but it wasn't like that one from last week or that one from 2 months ago.
You must have that with I'm sure all of your podcasts are amazing.
No, podcast and performances. Yeah, there's been tons of times.
But you never know, right?
Right.
I was just going to remind your audience to like, comment, share.
You're very good at that. And you technically have you technically have a fucking Instagram too, but you're never
I do.
on
I'm
that
just
thing.
not very active.
Right.
But you know what else is possible? Yes, it's true. It's true that it's sometimes it's even more beautiful than other times. To me, it's always amazing.
Right.
Even if I don't come through the way that I anticipated, other people do.
I
I'm
think
not the only one performing.
I think the fear of failure makes us. Here's something I've been learning in on a more real basis, because in the spirituality game, in the consciousness, meditation, blah 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 blah, therapeutic bullshit, in that world, it's very easy to. Like some of the things that we pass around is like to act as if, right? Where like, as an example, to be specific, I'm seeing somebody and, whatever. I don't need to go into fucking details. Suffice it to say, and it may be the end after, fucking the next time you see me, I might be, I'm still single, it's not exclusive. Anyway, suffice it to say, I'm not going to go into fucking details. You know enough about my life. But in that experience, I'm... Like, I've lost all this weight, right?
You look amazing.
Thank you very much.
I'm not someone that often notices weight, and yet I notice, and you look great.
Thank you very much. And I've, since then, like, I've gotten used to acting as if I'm attractive when I don't feel that way, right? So I may seem like I'm very confident in a lot of different ways. I'm very secure, blah, 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 blah. But around, like, taking my shirt off as an example, like, I just don't fucking like it. It's just... And the free, I want to say love or affection or whatever I'm getting is like, I don't even need to act as if. It's like it is a thing. Like I am enough. I am attractive. It is all right.
Yeah.
And so there's that. Thank you very much.
Thought you were going to leave me hanging.
Well, but there is that idea of, so I like how it ties into the thing and what brought it up for me.
Sure.
Is the idea of performance, vulnerability, putting yourself out there. Some of it is stretching the rubber band of, fuck it, I know this is scary, I know this is going to hurt, but what's the other option? And the other option is to not do it. Fuck it, fuck that. I don't want to know. What's the other option to getting hurt in a relationship? Not getting into a fucking relationship, not going out with people, not
you gotta live.
connecting. You gotta fucking live.
And yeah, there is something about the Living blog where it started. I was working with Sheila Rubin. She's amazing.
Rubin.
She was my director in California.
L.A.?
SF, San Francisco. And she does to this day, self-revelatory theater. So you kind of go up on a stage and you give the audience a glimpse of your life.
Right.
I got into it. And the thing that happened to me in that class, you take a class, I think it's 10 or 14 weeks, and then you do a performance. And what I think happened for me, I was, sharing this glimpse of my world, and people were laughing because I was kind of funny.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh, this thing that I saw is so traumatic. Was actually, it is, there's some humor to it. And that enabled me to loosen up and have a little humor around it as well. Mm. So it's super transformative. Mm. And I was like, how do I enable other people to have this experience? Like, this is interesting. This is profound. This is art. And art as a means to transformation. Mm-hmm. So that's why when I came to New York and I got with Judy Gold, who's the director, we mentioned this last time.
Right. She's very, and I'll repeat what I said before. Yeah, she's a very funny comedian. I hate her politics, but I love and support her. So if this ever gets back to her, I doubt it would. But yeah, she's over here on the Upper West Side.
Gold,
very funny comedian.
She's an amazing person.
Right.
She's such an amazing director. Mm. I mean, she legit cares about all of her students.
Right.
So we would go each week for this solo performance class. And most people were like working out a scene from their life and, really digging in. Mm-hmm. I would go and I would write a diary entry and then read it to the class.
Right.
And it became the Living blog. Right. And then I've kind of for a long time throughout my life noticed how moving content through your body can help transform it. So that was also part of what I wanted to create. So it became the Living blog where I wrote, read, moved, and then I always wanted it to be interactive because I always wanted people to have that chance. Mm-hmm. And then it grew into a fully interactive performance piece.
And when I'm not prepared for it, like there's something to be said for it. It's the skill of prep, especially with performing music or something. You have to practice your guitar. You have to practice your voice. But there's something about not planning it and not having bullet points and all that bullshit where you just go out and just go, where there is, sorry, it's going to sound hippie, there is magic. I hate that word right now, but there is magic in that because there's room for the spontaneity. There's room for other people's experience. There's not like, oh, this is going to be judged. This is like, okay, someone just opened themselves, and I kind of feel like, fuck it, I kind of want to do that too. And you're in a supportive place to do so.
Exactly. And I do it imperfectly. Mm-hmm. It's not like even though I've done it a lot by now, it's not like I do it perfectly. It's not like I probably don't even have like perfect grammar. It's mm-hmm. something I wrote that morning. Mm-hmm. It's not a refined piece of artwork. It's not a painting that's totally complete. Right. But it's beautiful, and I should say it's beautiful in its spontaneity, and its authenticity. Is that word a little?
No, that one's fine.
You're game for that.
That one's not like magic.
And I love magic. Come on, we can.
If you said magic or truth, that would be like.
Oh, come on! They're all so lovely. Magic and truth, magical truth, truthful magic. Anyway, sorry. Cover your ears on your own podcast. Probably not. So it's. How do I express this? Am I expressing this?
You are.
Okay, because I never know if I really get it across. What are you laughing at? My high pitch?
Yeah.
The ladybug squeak? I never know if I really get it across. I sense that when people come to a performance, I sense people are a little like, that sounds kind of interesting, but I'm not sure if I'm down, right?
Yeah. Or maybe they're down to witness but not join in.
Once they get in the door, then they're like, oh, baby. Like, seriously.
Okay.
Anyone that's attended, I get the sense they did have some kind of amazing transformative experience, even if they didn't choose to perform.
Right.
It has that effect.
Right.
It's so vulnerable. It's so raw. It's so beautiful. And we do, like you were talking about taking off your shirt and how that can be vulnerable. That happens. People get undressed.
All right. Now we're getting
Not
somewhere.
always, not every time, and not every person, but that happens. Like it's legit the naked truth and magic. Sorry,
Right.
just
It
kidding.
could be anything.
But
Anything. It could be anything. It could be.
yes.
Yeah.
So you can, and I usually, because I'm a pretty open book, open person, open living blog, I usually start the party off with something pretty vulnerable. Not purposefully. I'm writing in a diary.
Right.
And then that sort of opens the doorway for other people to choose it. Here's another nuance. You can write it in your native language. Your native language may or may not be English. And read it in your language. We'll still catch the energy of it, even if we don't understand every word.
Right.
You can even read it in blah, 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 because we're going to still catch the energy. If you read your words, if you seriously take a minute, write something down from your heart, read it, and you don't want everybody to know every word,
Right.
and you do the blah, blah, we'll catch it's amazing, but we will catch the energy.
And I also want to delineate the difference between, because some of the, especially in San Francisco, some of the openness transgresses. Some of the openness easily careens into preciousness. So here's an example. If handled under less authentic hands or more insecure hands, something like this. Have you ever been to burlesque shows, like amateur burlesque shows?
Sure.
Now, some of them are lovely. Some of them are great. But some of them are a little too supportive. And maybe burlesque show is not a good example. Let's use a different one that has less vulnerability
you know what
to
I
it.
thought you were going to
Comedy. Open mic comedy.
Yeah.
Right? Or poetry. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Poetry is the worst
little
one, probably.
snaps.
Little snaps and also a little, and then I have the cadence, and then I
the
say the
cadence,
thing.
right.
It's very precious. It's
What
very
is it like?
arrogant.
It's like a long walk into the ocean. Is that it? Not
yeah,
really.
What
is it?
Or with
Can you
or
do
if it was a black girl, a long walk into the ocean. You know, and everybody, wow.
I kind of got excited about that. I did. You kind of just moved me a little bit.
That proved my
resonate with
point. That proved my point because there are tricks, and even as a musician, I know tricks. When I'm performing, I know tricks to get people involved or to give them a little this and tug them a little bit and give them a little slack and blah, blah, blah. And some of the tricks are when I'm feeling like either they're not giving me my thing, and insecure artists, poets, whatever, will go up on stage and do that shit, but we'll use those tricks to garner. Like they'll check a box because they saw someone else check that box because that box meant a certain reaction from the crowd. There's a preciousness and an arrogance that is trying to overseat or is trying to compensate for their insecurity. When this type of thing sounds like, no, because it's not a performance, because it's not precious, it can be messy, it can be weird, it can be sexy, it can be all kinds of whatever it is.
It's all of that, for sure.
That's what I
every
like about
time,
that.
even if we walk out the door and say, okay, it wasn't the best one ever, it's messy, it's sexy. What was the other word you used? It is all
Open?
that.
Yeah, authentic.
It is.
Yeah.
And again, some of the expressions are, I was going to say better than others, but they're all so different. You know what I mean? We're each. It's not a refined,
Right.
practiced, rehearsed,
Right.
Broadway play or painting or sculpture.
Right.
It's like art in the making, and every time it gets me. Every time, and other people too. This is going to sound cheesy and maybe precious, but you do laugh and cry,
Right.
because it's just like, wow, it's like somebody's willing. And you might be that person that doesn't think you're willing. You might be that person that says, or maybe I'll go, but just sit in the back. And then something about the container we hold, it's private, it's not typically taped or filmed. You know, it's its own experience.
Right.
It lives in that moment.
Right.
Then it drifts off into dust.
Right. And it's not a professional thing. Like, even though you've done this a number of times, you don't call yourself a public poet or any of that bullshit.
No.
You're just, this is what, you're not even sharing something you worked on. You're just sharing a blog post, and you process, yeah.
And I know that's part of its nature, right? I know a lot of people, I mean, the fear of speaking publicly, you clearly don't have this fear.
No.
It's very common, right? It's very popular. A lot of people are concerned about speaking to large groups.
Right.
And part of it, I imagine, is like, oh, I got to get it perfect. I got to make my PowerPoint or whatever presentation just right. I've got to make this poem perfect and say it in the amazing cadence or whatever. And this, you're absolutely, easy for me to say, correct, where this is like, you can just alleviate all that.
Right.
Because we're all doing it off the cuff.
Right.
And there's a beauty and a magic.
Right.
Did you hear me out there?
No.
Magic. There is some spontaneous. What's the word? Are you getting it? Like inspirational, motivational thing that happens every single time.
Right.
So yeah, when I was doing it weekly in this tiny theater, I would go to the theater like a couple hours before. I would clean the theater because I thought the theater was gross. You know, I'm kind of OCD. Clean the theater, change my clothes. I would perform. I would run to the back and do the music and the lighting.
Okay.
I would cue the music and the lighting. I would do all of it. I did all of it.
Right.
And so, yeah, it wasn't, you know, it had its own little flavor. I'm sure it didn't hit the mark every time. And yet, I think people walk away saying, huh, that was interesting. Or, wow, that was kind of bold. Maybe next time I'll actually do it. Or maybe it's not so crazy to get on a stage and say something.
Right.
And then for people that actually try it, for people that actually, you know, muster up the courage, it's very liberating.
Right.
And when you get that reflection, I'm sure you're aware, because you've been in front of audiences, when you get that reflection from a group of people and it's live, I know we're speaking to your audience now, right? But we may or may not hear their responses. Maybe they'll like, comment, subscribe,
blah, blah,
share.
blah, blah.
But when you're in a live audience setting and people are giving you the responses right there in the moment, there's something alive and fun to that. For just about anyone, I would imagine,
And
even if you're
also,
shy.
And I would also say that, yeah, it's not just the shy thing. Some people are genuinely shy. Some
Yeah.
people are, you know, afraid. So like in my spiritual work, one of the things I have found to be true is that when someone else opens up, say we're all in a group session or whatever, and someone else tells the truth, we all know what just happened.
Yes.
We all know what just happened, and it makes everybody else have this license where like, oh yeah, no, me too. Oh, I totally did that shit.
Precisely.
But when we're all being precious, when we're all being protected, when we're all like, all right, you perform for us, we're like, I mean, comedy's very much like that, where it's stand-up, where it's like if you want a good comedy crowd, the lights need to be dim and everybody packed in tight, because then the individual personality experiencing the performance can hide. Not intentionally, but they hide. You know, someone else is there and I'm just here, and I'll laugh at things that I maybe wouldn't intellectually believe myself that I would laugh at. But when it's a group thing and you're not asking a fucking thing from them, you're just going, here's me, here's this thing. Doesn't have to be like, and then it doesn't have to be Don't Cry for Me Argentina or any of that shit. It's just, here's this. This is a real thing, and I'm not even if half of you or none of you were here, I would still be doing this because I appreciate what I'm doing and it helps me. All of a sudden, that leaves the door open for other people to be like, "Fuck it, I'm jumping in too."
True. Yeah. And can I just tell you? I mean, that reminds me of something kind of funny. When I started, sometimes I would have a situation where no one would come, and I would still do it. Mm-hmm. When I was in that little theater in Chelsea, I sometimes would just perform the whole thing by myself.
Right.
And it didn't matter who showed up. Like if I had a full crowd, if I had one person, if I had zero, I did the thing because I wrote that diary entry. I wanted to read it and then move it through my body. So that's also spontaneous and beautiful to watch somebody like processing information through their body movements.
Right.
It's very unique. And yeah, I would love more people, and maybe, is this becoming a brainstorm sesh? Maybe the way to get more people is to give people an idea of what's going, like to show a YouTube of like, here's what happens behind these closed doors. I'm not certain because it's perhaps challenging to get the flavor of what takes place.
And also I think that it doesn't necessarily negate what could happen, but it changes the atmosphere or the energy of whatever when when there's video involved.
But maybe I should put out something like, here's an example of what, when I'm reading and writing and then performing, just so people have an idea of what they're getting into.
Right.
Because I try
and maybe
to
you
make
would say
these
that where it's just
and
like,
I try to be the invitation.
Right.
And I whether people are intimidated, I mean, people show up, and it's a fun time.
Right.
But I do sense some energy when I'm talking about it with folks where they're like, that sounds kind of cool, but ooh.
Right.
And I swear it's fun.
Right. But here's the thing. If you were videoing it, you could just video yourself.
Right.
And then, just so you guys know, I'm going to video it, but you're not going to be videoed.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah.
Or consent, or, just get everyone's consent.
Right.
Okay, so the other thing I was going to mention before we got so rudely interrupted by this video.
Technology. Can we do a quick prayer to Steve Jobs' soul? All right,
yes.
Continue what you're saying.
So the other thing is, I love to bring in access consciousness.
Of course. What else could we enjoy? What is it?
What else is possible?
What else is possible?
How does it get any better than this?
How does it get any better than this?
Okay. So from an access consciousness perspective, fear is an illusion. Fear is a lie.
Okay.
What if fear is actually misidentified as excitement? Right?
Or the other way around.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Because when we say we're afraid, we might actually be excited. Mm-hmm. The idea about fear being a lie is that, if you're actually in an emergency situation, you typically can act accordingly. You address it. You handle your business. And then the other notion, which I think I mentioned, I definitely mentioned on our last podcast, not the one that was lost in space, right. The idea of like we could be picking it up from someone else, and you can return to sender with consciousness, right. And fear can be a distractor implant. So yeah, like what if fear is actually not true? Though a lot of people say they have it about performance, I think part of the reason may be the whole notion of having to rehearse, make something perfect, and the Living Blog alleviates all of that.
Right.
We sort of transmute, is that the word? Transform our fear into the practice, into the erotic, into the experience, into the engagement. Right. People see me and others performing and they think, oh, yeah, I could handle that.
Right.
And then the feedback from the group sort of liberates.
Right. What I don't get, or not that I don't get,
Okay.
what disappoints me is the people along the way I have known. There's especially in the hip hop game, because I used to write and sing hip hop hooks for rappers around the country. Feel free to Google me and my music.
Like, comment, subscribe, share.
And some rappers I would work with were actually great, but did not put in the effort, right? And they said, well, it's just hard because, I have to have a regular job. It's like, okay, well, I have a regular job too, but I still put in the effort of music, Or some people were not good, but they were willing to put in a lot of effort, and they just never got better. It's just, and there's one in particular. I never worked with him, but I saw him at a show a long, long time ago, and he performed a fucking great song. Like I don't dole out musical compliments very easily. I'm a kind of a snob when it comes to certain things. I'm sure you can't tell. And I was like, that's a fucking great song. And it was actually a song about doing the work. It was a song about, hustling or whatever the fuck, which every hip hop song, every amateur hip hop song is about that. And then I never saw him again. That was it. And I would see him on Facebook once every 6 months posting pictures with his family, and and that's it. And the sadness is, for me, some people don't feel driven to do art, or don't feel driven, but some people use that as an excuse because they're actually afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of putting in the work, afraid of rejection. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Right.
But what else is possible on the other side of that, right?
On the other side of rejection, on the other side of fear, on the other side of
all of it.
Right.
Like, what if we just dive in head first?
Right.
It can be so rewarding. And I think people do get a taste of that at the Living Blog, because they didn't have to do the work. You just buy your ticket,
Right.
show up.
Right.
There's a chance within the whole structure of the program to write. You don't have to do that in advance. In fact, I don't encourage it.
Right.
And then the movement is also spontaneous and improvisational. So it's just like, but they get a taste of like, I got this. And the audience appreciates it typically, especially when people are willing to go deep.
Right. And I would also add too, you ever heard Louis C.K. talk about making pootie tang? Probably not.
I've actually heard a lot of Louis C.K.
Okay.
I know some people.
Ooh, I
don't.
know some. Some people who.
I don't know his people. I know some people don't love Louis C.K.
Because of the jerking off thing. I mean, yeah, those people are usually. I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be real.
I honestly invited him to the Living Blog because I thought that would be amazing. The Living Blog
just
is
him
rooted.
jerking off.
Well,
what else is possible?
That would be its own.
What else is possible?
Its own thing. The Living Blog. I mean, should we transition into that? The Living Blog is it roots from a trauma story. And I was encouraged to go the Me Too route when the Me Too thing was happening, and I was kind of like, nah.
Why?
It didn't speak to me and what I was looking to create. So the Living Blog is based on a childhood trauma. When I was a kid, my cousins dressed me up in my aunt's fishnet stockings and negligee, and I did a striptease for my family. And then I would proceed to spend the next 20, 30 years obsessing about a molestation with my uncle. And then, so many years of therapy and stressing and and then unpacking the experience, and then coming to a point where I wanted to reclaim my body.
Right.
I was like, the poison is the medicine. So I revisited the experience and I reclaimed it. And now it's this self-revelatory theater piece, reclaiming the body through erotic dance. The other thing that truly did help me, and I know I'm always an infomercial for access consciousness, but that also really did assist for me in my healing process.
Right.
They have lots of different ways of dealing with drama.
Sure.
And I through the living blog and the art and all the things I do in the world, caress, access, I've gotten to the other side of that trauma.
Right.
But Louis C.K., I thought would be like a really interesting guest. Like, wouldn't it be cool to hear his diary entry?
Yeah.
I invited him during, like, when he wasn't really performing because no one was having him at the time.
Right.
Now he's kind of back in action, right?
Right.
So I never heard back, but who knows?
Right.
But you were saying the making of his movie.
Well, yeah, but I'll get to that. But first things, I did want to ask a little bit more if you could elaborate. What was it like that first? Because I've had that experience too. I was just talking with somebody else. Back when I was in the boarding school, where I got sober, like 15, 16 years old. And I've talked about this on the show before. It's not me. I mean, old conservatish heads, they understand. They remember me telling the story. Hi. Like, subscribe, and share.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. Do people know, like, the benefit of that? Like, it's really important. And I don't know that all your listeners or everybody knows.
All of my career, hinges on that.
It really, it does, it helps us out.
It does. But in that boarding school, I'm 15, 16 years old. I got in trouble for something. And I got sent to sleep in the main house while somebody, an older kid or somebody who had been around the school longer was like my big brother to watch over me and make sure I didn't get into trouble. It was a punishment for something I'd gotten in trouble for. And one day, I'm putting in my bedding in the main house, and my big brother wasn't there yet. And I put my stuff down, and all of a sudden I realized, I accidentally looked through a window and I could see into the girls' dorms, which were downstairs. Yeah. And so I started being, for the next month and a half, I started being a peeping Tom. And
did I not laugh? Is that
no, it's fine. But this is the point I'm making.
Of me to laugh at that.
You're on fucking conservatish. This is the point I'm making. During that time, I wanted to kill myself, right?
Oh.
Afterwards, after getting caught, I wanted to kill myself. And I thought it was me for so long. I thought that thing that I did, that, it was violating and it hurt girls and blah, blah, blah. I thought that was me for a long time, to the point where, like, even, masturbating was bad. You know what I mean? I'm fucking 15, 16 years old, right? I'm just, it's, anyway. It's
a thing.
It's a thing. Suffice it to say, I got to the point through a lot of my own work, not just writing and making amends to many of those, to those girls and getting my reputation back. And it was all in a fucking boarding school in Southern California. Suffice it to say, through years of work, when I now try to think up like secrets, I have to remind myself that it happened. Like, I have to remind myself that it did it, because it's not a traumatic thing for me. It's not something I want to kill myself or even feel shame about. It's just, that did happen. And I'm open about it and whatever. I've talked about it on the show before. But meaning that same thing where it's almost like when I think about, what was the secret that I had? I remember that. Yeah, I did Peeping Tom for a little while. Like, it's not this thing that I have, I don't own it anymore. It doesn't have me. Mm-hmm. It's gone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a few things. Like, I don't mean to, by giggling, I didn't mean to undermine anybody's experience.
I know.
Like,
Yeah,
and I think it's pretty common that we tend to make ourselves wrong.
Yeah.
We tend to make ourselves wrong.
Right.
And I'm impressed that you were able to, like, work your way out of that.
Right.
And make amends.
Right.
And sort of move on. Because, I mean, we could spend our whole lives regretting any number of things.
Right, and having that as our identity.
Yeah.
Which then opened me up to, like, this other, aspect. I remember one of the things that really helped me, I was in a group counseling session maybe 3 months later, or 2 or something. And this counselor, who I thought, like, everybody in the school hated me, because they did for a couple weeks. And I was potentially going to get kicked out. It was a big fucking thing. And this counselor in this therapy session, he's like, Pete, it's okay to have sexual thoughts.
Yeah.
And it was news to me. I was like, oh, well, yeah, are you sure? Like, it was, I don't know if I said that, but I felt that. It was just like, okay. Like, I just felt like, but I'm this monster. You know what I mean? Like, I'm you know. And, you know, throughout the years of processing, throughout the years of knowing women who've gone through a lot of, you know, sexual trauma, guys too.
Sure.
Guys and girls who have committed sexual, you know, trauma towards others. You know, I feel, you know, and also through, you know, prayer and meditation and whatever, like it left a long time ago, and I don't own it anymore. And when that same thing happened for you, obviously it was a process, it was a long process, you know, but do you sometimes feel like, because even the way you just described your experience, it almost felt like, and then I went to the thing, and then this happened, and then it almost like felt you were talking like going to Arby's or something. You know what I mean?
Really?
Right. And not in a negative way. I just mean, isn't that interesting? Like, what is it somehow so behind you that you have to like bring it back up and like, not in a bad way, but like to elaborate, to, you know, share this experience?
It used to be something that haunted me on the daily. You know, I would recreate it in my life, which is pretty common.
In relationships?
Yeah, I would recreate those kinds of scenarios. Not because I was choosing that. It was kind of a default setting.
Right.
And, you know, PTSD, OCD, I was labeled with all the things. And you know, we talked last time, I've done so many different kinds of therapies as the practitioner, as the participant. I've meditated for a long time. It could be the cumulative impact of all of those practices. But once it was access consciousness that really flipped the switch for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where it was no longer studying. I think you were talking about that last time, where it wasn't, okay, let me dissect and dissect and dissect and dissect. Sometimes that dissection becomes, you know, masturbation.
Exactly.
Right.
So there are practices in access where, you know, you can return to sender. It might not even be yours. You can be picking up on the collective unrest about all these traumas that happen to all of us as the victim or the perpetrator or whatever, right? It can happen to men, women, transgender people, you know, all of it.
Right.
So yeah, I was no longer... I'm no longer claiming it. I think you just asked me something else that I'm trying to revisit. What was that?
I was talking about, do you sometimes feel, you know, what's the feeling now that, like, it almost felt like you had to bring it back up.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm bringing this back up and I'm going to spiral into a weird feeling for the next little while. But it is almost like it actually is gone. Like, I'm not trying. It's just not there.
It's not there.
Right.
And there practices in access about, so returning to sender, there's entities, there's walk-ins, there's all these practices to clear things.
Okay.
Last time we went into it a little bit.
Right.
The clearing statement.
Okay.
You can hear more about it at theclearingstatement.com. Dr. Dane here, who's the co-creator of Access Consciousness, discusses it. Gary Douglas is the founder. So there are all kinds of ways to clear trauma, or to clear any of those repetitive thoughts, feelings, emotions, for which I am so grateful.
Right.
And Dr. Dane also, I'm so lucky, he provided 2 sessions for me. He developed a practice called Symphony of Possibilities. You and I discussed this last time too.
Right.
I'm also now a practitioner. I received sessions, and it's an energetic co-creation,
Right.
and it changed things for me.
Right.
I would like to say it saved my life.
Right.
Because it did.
Sure.
And again, you know, I've heard many people say, oh, it's the cumulative impact. You've done lots of things over a long time. And that's true. And of course, Caress and the Living Blog and other practices fed my ability to change this.
Right. But I don't think we're ever late. I don't think we're ever late. I don't think that, you know, I understand what you mean by but like, because I agree that
it took
like
a long
it took
time,
a long
baby.
fucking time. Yeah. But
And
setting
I think
the
it doesn't
groundwork.
have to.
It doesn't have to, absolutely. But sometimes, like maybe that, what you're saying right now, maybe that was not just for your own benefit, that 20 years or whatever of navel gazing, you know, in your of therapeutic navel gazing, help somebody else, because you're like, no,
Sure.
no, I already know that. I heard, I did all that stuff. I practitioned all that stuff. I blah, blah, blah. Here's a different way. It is possible.
No
So I don't think
regrets.
we waste.
It's not wasted time. And I do think I've discovered through access consciousness and through the practices I've created a more efficient approach
Right.
to clearing things. So we don't have to like go into it and unpack it over and over in an obsessive compulsive manner. You know, I remember Dr. Dean saying something to me like, maybe you could revisit all the thoughts, feelings, and emotions and identify that some of them are not accurate, right? And I was like, I do that almost obsessively. And he was like, well, what about a way you could do it in a way that works? You know, obsessively is not the most
healthiest
effective
thing.
approach.
Right.
I mean,
right.
if you're obsessive about changing shit, perhaps, but if you're obsessive about the same old thoughts, the trauma, and you want to go back into it, or you want to confront the people, or, you know, you want to confront the family members, or all of that. I mean, it could be part of the process, and there are other ways to clear things more efficiently, which took me a really long time to discover.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be true for everyone. I know a lot of us have experienced something like this, and there are, truly in my experience, there are efficient approaches to clearing trauma.
Right.
And there's an idea in Access too that when we're doing trauma drama, we're not being ourselves.
Okay. Trauma drama like
any of it, all of the obsessive thoughts, when we're like playing, you know, the things I would play out in relationships, the dynamics, or
the reliving it in my head, the having imaginary conversations of confronting the person, the, you know, all that stuff.
feeling like a victim. I knew when people talked to me about Me Too and talked to me about the Living Blog and said, oh, you should pair these, I knew there was something about that didn't entirely resonate. And again, not to undermine anybody else's experience and what they choose. But I did simultaneously resonate with victimhood. And I knew at the time I was attempting to claim something else. I just didn't know exactly how yet.
But it didn't feel authentic to you. The mixing it in, or the Me Too movement itself, or some of the vagaries of the extremes of it, or something like that. It didn't ring true.
Yeah, I mean, there was a truth telling to it for sure,
Absolutely.
and there was a lot of exposure.
Right.
I just think there probably is a bigger picture, and I think perhaps some of that is coming out now. I mean, we're all socialized in really weird ways. Men, women, transgender people, all of us.
Right.
And so what else is possible with that? You know, I love that.
You do.
That question.
You do.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. When I one of my main things, you know, with this show, with my fucking everything I goddamn do, is connection. I think anything that is an impediment to connection is, like, this is my only life, bro. Like, I don't want to live thinking I'm a fucking monster. I don't want to live, oh, that person who hurt me, because, you know, I don't want to be a victim. And I like you talking about this, and I've talked about this before. Letting other people know that there is a way out, like, that actually works, that you don't have to be like, and then this thing. I was talking to somebody recently, white liberal girl. Surprise. Who was talking about, I was talking about race with somebody, with her, and I was like, well, I mean, a lot of the, you know, people I've had on my show, a lot of the black people I've had on my show, don't feel like there is a how did she put it? She said there. Well, we were talking about like, you know, certain behaviors of crime and you know, poverty and this and that, and she said, well, you know, the learned. I don't know how deep the trauma, the generational trauma of slavery goes. She was essentially backdoor saying, well, black people can't help being assholes because of slavery. It's white people's fault, right? And the black people, I told her, like the black people have had on my show, monopoly to that bullshit. They don't fangu. They don't want that shit because they've grown up, they've changed. They're people in their life, they're role models. Like they think that being a victim is the navel gazing thing. It sets up a blank check for any shit fuck behavior. It sets up a blank check for me to feel small, for me to be angry, for me to stay constantly. I see it everywhere. Oh, the blinds are not closing right because of slavery. Like it sets up a problem life, right? And that flies directly in the face of connection. It flies directly in the face of peace, inner peace and love and fulfillment.
Yeah.
And fuck that. And that's why I appreciate you telling that story and, whatever, because there is a way out. It is not your fucking identity, and you don't have to live in that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we differ on this, or maybe we don't. I'm not certain. I do think there's privilege. Certain people grow up with a certain amount of privilege, and others do not. And I do think slavery has a lasting effect, and I think there is a way out. There are opportunities for change. I was really lucky enough. I did grad school in South Africa. So I was part of a 4-year initiative to improve relations between the U.S. and Africa. And some of my studies were in South Africa, and I got to sit in on the Truth and Reconciliation hearings. So post-apartheid, there were these hearings where people could sort of confront victims, could confront perpetrators. And we got to witness that. And we got to see the change and transformation right before our very eyes.
Right.
I think it's possible to shift. I think it exists. I certainly think racism exists. I think slavery did have a lasting impact.
Okay.
And I think there are ways to shift on all ends of the spectrum.
Right.
And from a bigger picture vision, I think we're all infinite beings.
Agreed with a lot of that. I think I'd like to pick apart the slavery thing. As far as the incentive that comes, like I know, the incentive, unspoken, subconscious incentive of maintaining a victim mentality is really intoxicating, because I now get to punish people. It's fun to punish people. It's fun to bully. It's fun to other, especially when you're using your othering as an excuse for that. And every single type of person ever has undergone slavery in every country all over the world for thousands of years.
Yeah, and if you want to get super philosophical, some people believe too, like that we've lived many different lives, and we've been the perpetrator and we've been the victim throughout many lifetimes, throughout time.
And the incentive that comes from, or the feeling of not just self-righteousness, because I agree maybe that can, I'm not throwing out the idea wholesale of that the behaviors of one generation, even though it's been a few years, doesn't, especially, it wasn't like slavery ended and black people had no more fucking problems from the white man, right? But the solutions that get implemented along the way belie a problem with the diagnosis. Because the solutions are, well, just don't get... A perfect example, I've told this on my show. I had an anonymous San Francisco teacher on my show. And she talked about, even though she's a big old lefty, blah, 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 white girl, whatever, she talked about how black guilt, or white guilt, hurt black students. Here's one of the ways it did. The school found out that too many black girls were in detention. They were in detention more often than the others. And so the solution that they implemented was to have no more consequences for the black girls. How in the sweet hot fuck would that help them? Because what happens then is now a black girl's in the back of the class, the entire fucking class, on her fucking phone. You can't take her phone away from it. It's private property. Now she's not just distracting herself and fucking her own education in life, She's now fucking other people, other kids around, are like now getting distracted. Now they're all in the back. But I can't say anything. I can't give her consequences because she has black skin. Right? So the solutions implemented belie, to me, a problem with the diagnosis. And a shutting down of anyone who could implement a different solution because you don't understand you have white skin.
I mean, I would never suggest that many of the solutions that have been put into place are effective.
Right. Welfare.
Yeah.
Less kids, less families. There was black families were staying together. I think only they had a 25% divorce rate. Black kids being born out of wedlock, 25% in 1960 and 75% very recently. So was it just? I'm not saying that the only factor in that was welfare. I'm just saying is the solution you're implementing, is that helping the overarching healing, betterment, et cetera, or were some of those solutions with the mask of we're going to help these poor black kids overcome their generational trauma, which was actually some wolf shit in some sheep clothing shit. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think I do.
The overarching picture is, I'm saying the why, regardless of that question, ultimately I'm saying victimhood doesn't help anybody. And even though I've definitely been a victim, and it is okay for me to be angry at the piece of shit who abused me, even though I need to hold space for that, even though I need to whatever, the healthier thing is to process that rather than somebody saying, yeah, poor you. I need that for a little bit, but then I need to stand on my own 2 feet. And there is a way to do that, you know?
Yeah, there is a way to do that. And you were saying earlier, like the intoxication that can come from victimhood, and yet there's something so much more beautiful and rewarding when you work your way out of it, when you choose something different.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's a practice in access consciousness called interesting point of view, where you sort of see everything as an interesting point of view.
Okay.
So if this conversation is bringing things up for your audience,
Right.
They can say, "Oh, interesting point of view." Or if they're having points of view around this conversation, they can say, "Oh, interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. That you have that point of view."
Right.
Because it truly all just is an interesting point of view.
Sure.
I'm sure there are truths that exist. And, you know, we all have our various different ways of processing.
Right.
Yeah.
Did it make you uncomfortable that I was talking about slavery and things like that?
Did it make me uncomfortable? You know what? I was doing a practice as I was listening and as you were talking, of lowering my walls and my barriers, because I think typically in these kinds of conversations, people put their barriers up.
Right.
And when you put a boundary or barrier up, who's behind the boundary or the barrier?
Right.
You are.
Right.
So what else is possible?
Right.
So I was lowering my walls and barriers and listening.
Okay.
And, you know, I think it's cool to have conversations. I think that's part of what we'd like to have in a democracy.
Right.
It doesn't often exist because often it becomes combative.
Right.
Somebody's made wrong or right. But what if there is no wrong or right?
Right.
Just action and creation.
Right.
And like, what if there are truths? So, and you and I may see it similarly or not, but sort of like more useful solutions or remedies or ways to change and transform things than like these rules that are put in place. Like,
Right.
okay, we're just not gonna give detention.
Right.
You know, that doesn't sound very effective for anyone.
No.
So yeah, I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay. All right.
I know the convo started with Louis C.K.
Sure.
and his movie. Do you want to?
Yeah.
You were gonna tell
when
me about
he told
the
me the
making of-
story, or not me. He told the story on a show about making Pootie Tang. This was before he got really big.
Yeah.
And essentially it was his first movie. He's doing this thing and he's passionate about it and he writes it and directs it and blah blah blah. And then towards the end of the process, the director or the studio took it from him. So you know how sometimes there's a director's cut?
Yeah.
Wouldn't every movie be the director's cut? Nope. And so the studio had that taken away from him, right? Because they thought he was either mismanaging the comedy or mismanaging the money or mismanaging blah, blah, blah. They needed to do this. And so this is like nightmare, right? This is a nightmare for him. He sunk a year or something or more into this project. This is his, I came up with the fucking, I did the, and now the studio, right? They call him out to California and they put him up in a hotel, a nice hotel, because that's how those rats do it. And they have him up in a nice hotel, and they're slowly massaging, yeah, come on, next time. So he's like, okay, you put me up in this hotel in order to be in Los Angeles to talk to me about the movie and what you're going to do with it, but you're always somewhere else. And I go in, and now there's just an editor who's like editing my movie in front of me. Like, this is insulting, this is demeaning, this is demoralizing. Like, you're cutting off my experience, right? You're cutting off my artistic balls, right? And you're doing it, you're not just afraid of the movie not being successful. You're wanting to teach me a lesson or pretty much run me out of Hollywood. And what he said was, when your worst nightmare comes true, it's actually quite freeing. Mm-hmm. Because now he's like, oh, I'm still alive and I'm not kicked out. Like, everything is okay. Even though this trauma thing happened, even my worst fucking fear came true. I'm now labeled a failure. I'm now embarrassed. The movie is a piece of shit now. Like, it reflects poorly on me. The studio, this studio, that studio are not going to hire me because I'm a failure. And there's an abundant thing that happens where it's just like, oh, like, I'm still alive and everything's okay and I still have the artistic spark and I now know better than to trust a fucking studio. I know this and I know and you've learned all this stuff, and it's freeing to come off the other side of it when your worst fear comes true.
I've heard him, I don't know if I heard that story specifically, but I've heard him talking about bombing on stage and how that's of benefit. Because it's like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, oh, I can handle this. I'm still alive. I'm going to get back up there. I remember when I was a kid, and I fell off the cargo net. Remember that yellow? Did you have one of those?
I don't know. I didn't grow up in the 40s. Hey, I'm kidding.
This
yellow
net thing. And I fell off, and my teacher, and I couldn't breathe and all the stuff. And then my teacher
on the playground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like in the gymnasium, and there's like a big mat on the floor. So I fell on the mat.
All right.
But it was, but my teacher was like, get back up and climb. And I remember my legs shaking because, okay, you fall, you can still get back up and do it again.
Right.
Like this whole podcast, we lost it.
I know.
We almost lost it again.
Jeez.
But we're here. We're crushing it.
The ghost of Steve Jobs.
Yes, thank you, Steve Jobs.
But I also want to reflect that into the people who are either going to go or people at your show. Oh, and by the way, you can get tickets at a discounted rate at thelivingblog.net/
Yeah, so
Vault?
if you go that was the code word you gave me.
Right.
If you go and you go to the Eventbrite to get the tickets, which you can do so through the website, you put in the passcode BALD.
Nice.
And you'll have a discounted rate because you're a listener of this fabulous show.
Fabulous. And the experience that I want, or similar to like whatever, when people are there or whatever, from that story is like, oh, okay, yeah, it might not go well. If you decide to go, fuck it, I'm going to join and I'm going to read something, like, it might go poorly. And like, okay, I've had this experience. Every dude knows this experience. Girls know it in a different way, but every dude knows this experience of like, okay, I'm going to ask her out. I'm going to ask her out. I'm going to ask her out. Double dutching. We're double dutching on the maybe. I'm going to ask her out, and then nope, I'm not. And we walk the fuck away. Did we save ourselves from rejection? Yep. Does it feel good? No. No, it does not. it feels like, oh, I should have asked her out. Oh, and then we beat ourselves up for a couple fucking hours sometimes, where it's just like, it was right there. And I reflect back, and she's like, she was fucking smiling at me, the fucking beat. Every dude knows that experience. And so I kind of would say, fuck it, and learn to scrape your knees. Learn to, if you want to do it, and you're welcome again, like she said, to just go and watch other people. But don't be afraid. Like, if you're feeling moved, go with the movement. It's better to risk and fail. It's trite. We all kinds of people. We're better to love than and then lose. But like I'm saying, it's better to risk and fail than to not risk at all.
Yeah. How do I express how beautiful it is every time? I know I've said it. I'm thinking of two people that came from my hometown. Poughkeepsie.
Poughkeepsie.
What?
Gross. Continue.
Poughkeepsie. And, these are not professional performers.
Right.
The guy knew me from high school. I was so touched that he joined us. And I hadn't seen him in like a decade.
Right.
And he came and he had someone with him, and they both sort of performed together. And there's also a pole, by the way.
Ooh.
And they didn't have pole experience, but they did this gorgeous makeshift creative performance. And everybody loved it. Like everybody was talking about that. I'm recalling someone else who gave this really vulnerable diary entry, and then did this gorgeous movement. And like you said, and we've talked about now quite a bit, it's not choreographed, it's not refined, it's not rehearsed, it's not practiced, but there's something about the vulnerability of the expression that is gorgeous.
Right. What's the next stuff you've got on deck?
So much stuff. I'm also teaching the bars, as I mentioned. I'm going to give a symphony session. I'm always offering symphony sessions, either in groups or with individuals. We could do a little symphony again. We did that last time.
We did do that last time.
I might have thrown you off a little last time, but now you're prepared.
Yeah, that's true.
But actually, you never know what's going to happen with the symphony. It's
do you do it on Zoom too?
I do.
Okay. All right.
Because I have clients all over. Sure. And then always offering caress sessions.
Right. And we talked about that last time.
We follow the moon schedule because we just are the witchiest witches. So we do it on the first quarter, the new moon, the dark moon, and the full moon.
I just love that the growth that I've the directions that my show goes in.
It just goes in every direction.
Masturbating on moon schedules.
Everything, exactly.
Right.
By touched everything.
Vulva.
Exactly. And the symphony. Should we do a little symphony? Just for
does
fun?
it have to be about a certain thing?
Doesn't, but it can.
Okay.
It typically starts with the question, if you could receive anything from this session, and it could be with a group, and you'll receive this if you choose or not.
Okay.
And you and I could do it individually, or we could just work with your audience that will listen to this in the future. Okay. It typically starts with the question, if you could receive anything from this session or from this experience, if you could get anything, what would it be? And then we energetically co-create it. That may look like someone, the participant is asleep on the massage table.
Right.
It may be we may be actively engaged with each other. Some people say sleeping is an even better way to receive.
Okay.
You're super open.
Sure.
You're not judging typically if you're sound asleep.
Right.
And then we use energy. I kind of move the energy. Maybe you can sense it. Maybe you can't. It's all okay.
Sure.
And sometimes we run some clearings. And yeah, those are the sessions Dr. Dane provided, which for me created so much dynamic change in my world.
Let's do it.
So if you could get anything, what would it be?
Am I going to answer?
Yeah.
Self-belief.
Would you like to say more?
No.
Okay. It's fine. And would you be willing to let go of judgments, conclusions, computations, expectations, rejections, separations, refined judgments, decisions, and anything and everything that doesn't allow it? We'll run the clearing statement. We went over this last time, and you can look at theclearingstatement.com. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine, shorts, boys, provads, and beyonds. It all has meaning, but it's not required that you understand the meaning for it to like work.
Because I definitely don't.
Maybe you feel a shift when I say it. Maybe you don't. For me, the first time I heard it, shout out to Carla Lightfoot.
Dr. Dan.
Well, Carla was my first.
Oh.
I was in the elevator. Do you sense this?
A little bit.
Mm-hmm. I was in the elevator at the dance studio. I was upset about a dude, as per the usual at the time. And she ran that clearing statement on me, and I said, okay, whatever that is, I would like more of that, please. And that was my entryway. And then I took Access Bars. I'm now teaching it next Friday. And I've really taken a pretty deep dive into access consciousness, including, like I mentioned, this symphony of possibilities. And it's legit just playing with energy. So maybe you're sensing something, maybe you're not. Maybe your audience can sense it through the airways, maybe not. What if there is no right or wrong or good or bad, just action and creation? So if you are sensing sort of a little change in your world, that's cool. If you're not, that's cool. And it really just enables an opportunity for you and your body to like take a breath. And it can, in my experience of it, change anything and everything. Like, you know, I did all the things as we've mentioned in the other podcasts, like therapies, and I'm not knocking that. I think that's awesome.
Right.
And for me, it was like, you know, sometimes the words aren't totally accurate, but when you're playing with energy, it can be even more effective. What's happening for you right now?
I'm feeling it.
No pressure to feel it.
No.
I remember last time we just kind of dove in.
Yeah.
Now
I like this better.
You're like, oh, I know all about this symphony.
Pox and pod, whatever.
Yes, pod is point of destruction, and poc is point of creation. So it's kind of like going back to the point of destruction, point of creation. It's said to go back in time, go forward into the projected future, clear the present.
Right.
It has the capacity to do all of that if you choose it.
Right.
A lot of these practices from Access are also linked to our willingness to receive.
Sure.
It's interesting to have quiet moments on a podcast.
Like, subscribe.
They're
share.
like, did my phone die or something?
Or maybe
right
when
there.
the energy goes through, it's almost like when you computer speakers that have, when you get a phone call where it's like zzz, 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 maybe that's what's happening in their speakers right now.
Exactly. Did we cover all the bases? Do we have other things to discuss this fine evening in New York City?
A little bit more.
You're digging this energy.
Yeah. As far as covering the basis conversationally, no, I think we're good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to know, or anything else you'd like to share?
Well, not until you're done.
I can be done at any moment. You felt that. I felt you feeling that.
All right.
Yeah, right?
Thank you.
My
That's very
pleasure.
nice.
Thank you.
And I got it for free. All I had to do was buy
Exactly.
you chocolate truffles.
Normally it's $250 a session. Truly. So Caress is my least expensive offering. It's $25 to drop in.
Even.
But But
Caress is the one with the public masturbation. Well, public
exactly.
masturbation.
But a lot of people attend. My rates will likely be going up soon, actually.
Of course.
But $250 for a symphony sesh, hell yes.
Nice.
Unless it's a group, then I offer it at a lower rate.
Okay.
$75 for group sessions. But truly, you can receive the energy. You can listen again and receive energy and just notice what you notice.
Right.
And if you did sense something, you can always tap back into that.
True.
It's
And you can learn
available.
to kind of do it on your own, too.
You can.
I noticed when I was doing my hypnotherapy sessions with my homie, shout out to Dave Walsh in San Francisco. When I was doing my hypnotherapy sessions, I noticed, I mean, you can get a little bit more hippie than we just got, but not that much.
Really?
But I noticed, you know what? I won't share the exact specifics, but I will share. But I know when I'm pushing and moving energy, either through myself or through others. And I think that's, we've talked about it. I'm a bit of a pervert, a dominant and things like that. And I feel like that's a big part of that. Is that like I know where and I'm playing like I straight up fucking symphony. Some girls, if they're open and they're fucking flowing, I'm playing her like a goddamn symphony, and that's feels perfect for my soul. Like that feels fulfillment. That feels truth. That feels fucking bedrock. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we're all operating on an energetic plane, whether or not we choose to acknowledge it.
Touche.
I really appreciate how Dr. Dane has articulated it. I appreciate his particular practice.
Right.
But yes, energy is available to all of us at any moment.
Right.
And we can use it when we're having sex, when we're walking down the street,
Right.
when we're climbing a mountain, when we're at work. It's, you can manipulate energy.
Yeah. And it's fun to just do that. Like if you recently I've been practicing. I mean, sometimes I would pray for someone crazy or whatever. But you're walking down the street in New York City and you see someone just out of their fucking mind, haven't showered in a year, that type of whatever, and just send them. I mean, yeah, it's also good to give them $20 or whatever, but it's also good to send them love.
I don't know if I am plagiarizing this. There's some kind of, it could be Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, who's talked about this, or maybe I'm making it up. I'm not certain. But I get an awareness, like when people ask me for change, I'm like, yeah, there's change, right? And there's also change. So I'm sometimes tempted. I've never actually done it. And again, this
Can't
could
you just shoot
be
it like a laser beam?
Exactly.
Get around the corner and just pew pew.
There's something. Gary Douglas may have talked about this. I may be tapping into that. But there's something about like when somebody's asking me for change, and I'm like, what kind of change you want? Because I could shoot you some energy. We'll see what it creates.
What about just doing it?
I can do it regardless.
Here's the thing too. I would even venture to say that even now. Or maybe the other time was a better example. When I'm not open, I still fucking get it anyway.
There's getting it.
There's something about. Here's the deal. I kind of feel like they're speaking to the masturbatory, navel gazing therapy thing that I've had points in my life where I was so fucking crazy where I wanted the help but thought I wasn't able to receive the help because I needed to be in a certain mental mindset and I needed to check some fucking box and I just can't. I'm in the spiritual land of make-believe, when in reality, I'm actually good, and I'm okay, and it's all right. And there's no striving, and there's no struggle, and there's no focus, and I don't have to fucking be the perfect receptacle. I just continue to move, and everything, for some fucking reason, it gets better and better for me. Do I always know that? Absolutely not.
I get
but
it.
It does.
Yeah, what if there are no problems? Because problems are inventions, and guess who invented them?
Yeah.
We did. That used to trip me up. I'd be like, well, I didn't invent my problems, and what about racism and all the other things?
Yeah.
And then at some point I was like, oh, I can choose something else. This circles back to that intoxication of being a victim.
Right.
And it's even more intoxicating, right? It's
Right.
even more, and maybe intoxicating isn't the proper term. It's
Blinding.
even more engaging and amazing to choose transcendence over victimhood, to
And
choose
right.
like something else, to say, wait, I'm not a victim. I'm a potent
Yeah.
witch. And sometimes that's
Or
spelled with a
whatever.
B.
Right. and I think it's not just intoxicating. Sometimes that idea of victimhood is not just intoxicating because of who I am and the people wanting to help me and like, you know, me getting blank checks from people because don't you know I had a bad childhood, but also it's a form of me, like all of us humans, are desperate to control. And if I can reject myself before you reject me, there you go. I'm in control of my rejection. I'm in control of being poor. Because if I try and I fail, that's more devastating. I'd rather sit in my poverty. I'd rather sit in my lowness. I'd rather sit in my fucking, low vibrations because it's easier, it's scarier to do the opposite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What if we could, there's a clearing, well, it's something like, what if we could be out of control, out of concentricities, out of form, structure, and linearities for all eternity?
You access gals.
We
You like
love
your
all
sayings.
this. I know, but I mean, for me, when I hear them, something sort of, I don't know if it happens
Speaks
for
to you.
everyone, but something sort of, the energy does shift.
Right.
There's something sort of like, oh, even if I don't understand or stand under all those words,
Sure.
I receive something from the clearings that does seem to shift the energy. That's what happened with Carla in the elevator when she ran the clearing statement. I'd never heard the clearing statement. I didn't know what she was talking about. But I was like, that sounds, yeah. It felt like a little magic wand on my head.
Right.
And it did lead to a lot of profound, change.
No more problems with boys.
They've changed. You know, I don't
The problems
have the
with
same,
boys have changed?
Well, yeah, I'm not a victim. I'm not playing out childhood trauma.
That's fucking helpful.
I'm recognizing the fun. I'm having fun with me and my body, and sometimes I invite other
Absolutely.
people,
Sure.
or person. Yeah, like that's definitely changed.
Right.
There's this other thing going. Are we getting into another topic? Or
Sure,
are
we got a few more
about to
minutes.
land this plane?
Do it.
There's this other topic that's been coming up in my world through Access Consciousness about the idea of the myth of two-ness bringing oneness.
Okay.
Like we have this idea that we must be partnered with somebody and we've got to live happily ever after. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
That's amazing. And some people choose that, and that's beautiful, and I commend you. And it may or may not end up being the fantasy land story that you have in your mind when you're a kid. You know, you can achieve oneness in other ways, not
Sure.
just through being in a couple
Right.
or being, the other half of a couple.
Right. Is
Like,
it
what
similar
if there's
to
an insignificant other rather than a
right?
significant?
That makes sense. There's also I've in the game we're in, or where those conflate. There is a saying that's like, well, instead of one and one, or half and half, like you complete me. No, it's two complete people choosing to be together and create something different.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Whether that be kids or a home or this or just a relationship. But when you are seeking somebody else, like that's poverty thinking at its fucking finest, to think that, someone else is going to complete me. And then it's just this sucking of fucking energy. I've been on both sides of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we probably all have, right? At one point or another, in some way, shape, form.
Right.
I think we talked about this on our last podcast about relationship being the distance between 2 points. That's the definition.
Okay.
And there's creationship, where it's more co-generative. We talked about that one. I'm certain.
The word bothers me, but
It
continue.
does? How come? It's too trite, or what is it for you?
No, it's listen, corniness.
It's corny?
It's a little bit, but listen. Some corny shit's great. I'm not. It gets a little bit. It's like magic. To me, it's just like, ugh,
Gosh,
a
I love
little bit
those
of-
words.
No, I know you're a girl.
Oh, is that a girl thing?
I was by the fucking way before we fucking stopped. One of the ways that is, I know a lot of like mature women, like intellectually, spiritually,
That were born in
whatever.
the 40s, as you referenced earlier.
That's what I'm saying. But the disconnect between what y'all know about the male experience is huge.
Oh, I don't know shit about the
Fucking
male experience.
huge.
Although I feel like I've learned more recently.
Yeah, because you're fucking hanging out with me.
I credit you for all of my
Absolutely.
learning. In
Subscribe,
male
like, share.
experience.
But
Comment,
it is true. I was talking
subscribe.
I was
share.
talking with somebody the other day, and I was like, hey, had a weird. Did I tell you about this? No, probably not. We had a weird kind of thing, and then we were kind of sussing it out and talking about the different aspects of it. Suffice it to say, I told her about like if you don't know the male or girls, if you don't know the male experience, start at Tinder.
At Tinder?
Start at Tinder, go online and use pictures of even a 7 or an 8 out of 10. A 7 or an 8 out of 10. A dude's picture. And try to get laid. Now,
Good luck.
as far as the swipes you'll have to do, you'll just swipe. So that's already, we all know that. But then trying to figure out the right words to say and not be, oh, I don't like the way he used this fucking punctuation. Or he said your by accident when he meant your. Or there's I don't know, I just don't understand. I don't know about it. I just don't know. There's a lot of fucking ambiguity. There's so much blah, blah, blah. And to try to nail that down, you'll get frustrated with girls and it'll start to just a little crack in the feminism, the future is female. Really? A little crack in that bullshit just to understand that we have our own version of hell.
I feel you. You and I started talking about this a while back because I also, Ladybug Productions also offers matchmaking.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Romantic matchmaking. So I started
Right.
getting an awareness of how people operate. It was outside of me. So my awareness previously was either with clients or in my own experiences, right?
Sure.
This was something new and different for me to do romantic matchmaking. I'd done professional matchmaking, so another thing that Ladybug offers, blah blah blah,
Blah, blah.
is like I do staffing, so I match people in positions.
Sure.
I had a full-time job in that role for many years, and I now do it independently. Well, that leads very swiftly, very easily into romantic matchmaking. It's very similar.
Sure.
It's energetic
Right.
as well.
Right.
Even when I worked in my corporate job in staffing, I was like, oh, I just kind of sense the resumes. I didn't tell everyone that, but that was my point of view. After I worked that job, I ended up doing romantic matchmaking, and I did start gaining these insights into the hetero male experience. And I was like, oh.
What does O mean?
Well, I think you said Tinder, and I thought you said tender, and I think I gained a tenderness for men in a way I maybe hadn't cultivated in the past, because I sort of got a better understanding, a better awareness, a better view, a better perspective about what truly happens. I can't say definitively, obviously, for everyone, but
What's an example or a couple examples?
What's an example? Well, I just would hear feedback from female clients. And of course, I love and respect my clients. They're awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hear feedback from clients about, oh, well, he did this or he did that or he didn't do this and I'm like, okay. And yet this person also really wants to create a relationship. I think it's kind of a setup for all of us.
Okay.
Because I think too, it's not as if, I don't think like, well, maybe, but I think it's more nurture than nature. Like, I think women are kind of set up to think we have to like change the dude and make him perfect. And if not, we're in a shit relationship. But yeah, I started noticing how challenging it can be to please a lady.
Right. especially on the jump.
Yeah.
This is
Once
part
you get,
there you go. Once you have sex with her,
then
you
she's
could
like,
throw
"Oh,
shit out the
baby."
window, and she's just like, well, I mean, he's very passionate.
And meanwhile, what happens on the other end of that? I'm curious.
So
So once we have sex, like in a hetero situation, like, the dude, what's going on for him? Is he kind of?
it depends.
Yeah.
On a lot. And a lot of it is very complicated. And there's all that like, guys are simple. Fuck you. You don't understand us. But some ways we are. Some ways. And one of the ways that it manifests is if I like them, I don't really know until we have sex. I just don't. I'm sorry.
Oh, you don't know how much you like them until you bang.
Yeah. Part of that is the elaboration that happens when you're like, oh, I like this is chemical shit. That's just nature, right? So if you open what else is possible when you what else is possible with a girl, and you feel like, oh, this is a chemical nature, okay, this is fucking good. But also, if in the back of my head as a male, the job nature wise is to, I know it sounds pedantic, but is to spread the seed, or is to whatever. So when that's still on the table, or it's like hanging like a pendulum or whatever, that's the focus. What I'm coming towards a goal sometimes. And then once that's all right, then it's like, okay, now do I like her? Yeah, the goal to bang.
Okay. Yeah.
So as an example, recently I was seeing somebody, and am I going to tell this story? Yeah,
you are.
But it's not. It's not. Whatever. I don't think she watches the show. Suffice it to say,
You watching?
I was seeing somebody,
woman.
and I realized, like, it's just not a good fit. But
Physically?
In multiple ways. But in my head, I'm a fuck. I'm in my 20s. You don't give up pussy. Are you out of your fucking mind? Because I don't know. It's like a fucking wolf going through, or a camel going through the desert. I don't know when's the next time I'm going to get water.
So I was like, what's going on here? Are the camels
You know what I'm
and
saying?
the wolves getting together? Is that what's happening?
But I'm mature now, where it's just like, you know what? I'm going to, rather than juggling this thing because I'm supposed to in my head, check this box of, well, you don't give up pussy because of whatever. It's just like, this isn't a right fit, and I'm going to let it go. And that's the right thing to do, not just for her, but for me. And I'm going to allow space, hippie, whatever. I'm going to allow space in the rest of my heart, time, schedule, whatever, for people who do fit me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And even though it's hurting her feelings, and I'm like, I fucking don't want her to hurt. That sucks. It wasn't something I did intentionally, but I'm not fucking feeling it, and that's okay. And so I had to set the boundary, and I set the boundary. And, it's all right. But it was, new for me, because in my head, it's like, well, let's just keep fucking until you make the decision to, you know what I mean? Because I'm willing to juggle 48 girls. I don't care. I'm fine with that. I've got time, whatever. But now it's just like, I'm like, okay, I don't know, how did that loop into the other thing I was saying? I'm saying
we were starting with
that change.
dudes. Like, we started
Right.
from the dude's perspective.
Right. Oh, that's what it is. Until that's off the table, until sex is not off the table, until sex is, okay, we did that. And the first time is certainly not, a 100%, evaluation of that connection. Because a lot of times you're first with somebody and it's kind of uncomfortable. And then the second time is banging, you know what I mean? So whatever. But I'm saying once that's not hanging over, then I'm better able to evaluate whether or not I like her. You know what I mean?
And so a less mature version of you, even if you didn't really like her, you want to keep her around. Why not? You got the time. A more mature version of you says, okay, I've got other things to accomplish. Mm-hmm. This isn't really my...
Or I like somebody else more, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as far as the male perspective on that, I mean, it's not new. It's not the first time I've rejected somebody, but I'm just saying, in my head, it's like, well, I'm moving and I've got time. Like, I've got, it's all right. And then I was just like, no, it just doesn't feel right. And I'm just going to listen to myself, you know?
Nice.
So as far as, does that elaborate a little bit more on?
Sure.
Yeah. But as far as that male perspective, it's just interesting to hear the y'all don't know, none of that. Where like, why would you have sex with someone you're not attracted to? Every fucking
yeah.
dude knows the experience of having someone they're not attracted to.
Yeah,
And
and
girls
not
know it
every
in their own
woman,
way, too.
But although some women probably do
Sure.
have that,
Yeah.
and I have heard that too. That's been interesting from clients. Oh yeah, we did end up having sex, or we did kiss, and I wasn't really enrolled, but I went along with it. That does happen a lot. I heard that a lot. I'm someone that really curates things. I carefully curate things. It doesn't always work out the way I would like,
Right.
but I really only choose it when I'm interested in choosing it. I don't just like go along if I'm not there.
Right.
But I think a lot of people do go along, men and women.
Sure, for different reasons.
Right.
Yeah, it's not
Regardless.
because right. The girls don't do it because I don't know when the next time I'm
No,
going to get
because they
laid
could
is.
go down the street and get laid if they choose.
I'm saying.
Many of us, but yeah, they might do it for other reasons, like feeling pressured or feeling
Or I don't
like
wanna
I'm
hurt his
supposed to
feelings
or something.
Sure,
Yeah.
Sure.
But like, yeah, what if we get to choose from moment to moment and really like, is this fun? Is this light? And if not, maybe not.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else is possible, everybody?
How does it get any better than this?
Anyway, I'll wrap it up in a bow with this. I appreciate that you're into this thing, you're into the access and the blah 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 blah, but it's not fucking sacred. That's what I don't need no fucking, even if somebody, because not just like I was saying on the episode that got lost, but also like I need the space to be fucking fuck you and take shit piecemeal. I need that space when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to a religion, when it comes to a mindset, when it comes to whatever, a political party, high leftist. But I need to be able to go like, okay, I like this part, and I don't like this part, or I disagree with this, or I don't do that. Nobody gets my 100% investment. Nothing gets my 100% investment ever again because I understand that the need for something to have 100% investment is mostly built on sand. It's mostly built on insecurity.
Yeah, I mean we did mention this in the last podcast, I think, where something that really resonates with me is the idea of knowing what you know and not necessarily having a guru or a teacher or practice or religion that says you have to do it this way, you have to follow every aspect.
Right.
But what about a practice that says, what do you know? That to me is way more compelling.
Right.
If a practice or another person is helping me uncover what's true for me, I'm in.
Right.
If somebody's telling me what's true for me or telling me what to do, no thanks.
Right. Especially people like we've been in the game. I've been in the game, spiritual, introspection game for like fucking 15 or 20 years.
Yes.
You're gonna come to me like, all right, now you should do. Fuck you. What are you out of your fucking mind? Think about the therapy you've done, all the introspection, all the whatever.
Did I tell you? I don't know if I told you this last time. I essentially started my career. My first career was in conflict resolution, mediation, bias awareness. I started that in the 4th grade.
Okay.
Seriously, there was a peer mediation program. I became obsessed. I was always a seeker. I was obsessed with peer. I was going to create world peace through this peer mediation program at Krieger Elementary School. Oh, yes, I was. And then Poughkeepsie. And then it became my career for many years. And then, yeah, I've done lots of things. I got into Buddhism 20 years ago. I've been meditating every day for 20 years. I've done long practices. I've had therapies. I've had lots of different things, but the practices, the modalities that resonate most are when the teachers, the leaders say, "What do you know?
Right.
What's true for you? What's true for your body?"
Right.
Then I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in. I'm enrolled because I think it's helpful for all of us to discover that, and it leads to greater consciousness.
Right.
So cultivating that consciousness with ourselves and our own knowing can help create a pathway for countless others.
Right.
How does it get any better? What else is possible? What energy, space, consciousness, choice, magic, mysteries, miracles, and possibilities can we be?
I'm gonna throw the microphone. And I just thought about a joke out of nowhere.
Tell me a joke.
If you're it's not even like a joke, but it makes sense to me. If you're like trying to date women,
Yeah.
sometimes feels like trying to pick up Mercury, but it's trying to pick up Mercury that is mad at you for not picking it up.
No.
That just little take that
Sorry,
nugget
guys.
with you, girls.
To
Take
all
that
the
nugget
guys
with
I've
you.
loved before,
Why,
I apologize.
Why aren't you? Okay. Where are all the good men? Anyway, where can people?
Here's a good guy.
Here's I am. Well,
See,
actually, here's
he
I
didn't
fucking
get his-
go.
he didn't
I'm
get his
going to
grammar
fucking
right. I
Austin.
can't date him.
I'm going to fucking Austin.
we'll
I
miss
don't need.
you.
I'm gonna get some fucking guns. I'm
Get
gonna
your
get me
guns.
a goddamn Ford F-150 XLT
Packing
up in
heat
this
over here.
motherfucker. I don't give a fuck.
Okay.
Sarah Jane from Ladybug Productions. You have an event coming, so
I
plug
do.
that before.
The Living Blog. Find me on thelivinglog.net. Get your tickets at a discounted rate.
By
Password bald.
right, they go to Eventbrite, or
Well,
they
no, they can go to my website.
livingblog.net,
And you can just
click
press
on the
the
event.
tickets.
and then put in the
And
code
it'll bring you to the
BALD.
Eventbrite where you can put in the code and join us. If you're a little nervous, truth isn't yours, return to sender. Maybe it's just excitement. And you can always just watch. If you'd like to real deal participate, you don't have to know in advance.
No.
Come, it's spontaneous.
Right.
There's amuse-bouche.
Ooh,
Drinks and light snacks. It's in an amazing venue in Brooklyn. We'd love to see you come out.
awesome.
You'll be gone.
I will.
I'm also teaching Access Bars. Where can you find that? Go to the Access Consciousness website, and you can find me as a facilitator in New York City and take my bars class.
Nice. But
that's-
can they also get? I mean, is
You
the
can have
hub
a
of all of
session.
it is Living Blog, isn't it, or is it Ladybug?
Well, good question. It's it's under construction.
Okay.
Thelivingblog.net is my main website right now. I'm in the process of creating a bigger site for Ladybug
But
Productions.
that can link to, and they also can contact you
future.
if they were interested
But
in
yeah,
a certain
contact
aspect
me
of your
and
therapy.
Exactly. I'm happy to work with you, play with you. What else is possible? Like, comment, subscribe, share.
Poc.
Point of distraction, point of creation.
Thank you so much, Sarah Jane, for
Thank
joining
you
me.
so
It has
much.
been a blasty poo, as always. Wherever you're listening, make sure you subscribe, share, rate, review, or I'll find you and fill your bed with applesauce.
Applesauce. I was picturing like some creepy spiders or something.
No, I would never do something like that. I
But
just
you would
wanna,
with the applesauce.
Yeah, I just want to inconvenience them for their. I love you all very much. Oh, Instagram, Peter_Feliciano, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
Tweeter.
And thank you again very much,
Tinder.
Sarah. Tinder.
How does it get any better?
Bye, everybody.